Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's Matt and Cheryl's Gen Excellent Playlist. I'm Matt.
I'm Sheryl.
And today on the playlist, we continue to explore the amazing pop year of 1979. Sheryl and I were 10 years old back then. For me personally, just getting into following current trends in popular music and listening to the hits of the day on FM radio for the first time. And my little clock radio in my bedroom that I bought at Crazy Days in Chehalis, Washington. My dad may still have it in the garage. It's probably still. I should probably track that.
Wow.
Should
You
probably
should
track
find
that
it.
down sometime.
I had the clock radio that had the numbers that like flopped down. They
Oh,
were
okay.
like little plastic things. Yeah. Well, the movie Groundhog Day?
Of course, yes.
Well, you know how they close up on the clock? There's a few shots where they
Yes,
close up.
yeah.
That's the clock I had. The same one.
Okay. No, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Isn't that one of the most rewatchable movies ever?
Yes, it is. I've gone back and watched a lot of movies from the 80s and, like early 90s with my kids. And that is definitely one that still holds up and there's not that many, really.
Yeah.
That do, but that is one of them. The other one that I will watch over and over and is still great, 9 to 5.
I must have seen that whole movie at some point, but it's been a long time.
It's so good. Dolly Parton,
Yeah.
Lily Tomlin, and Jane Fonda are all so great in it.
And Dabney Coleman, just
yes.
You want to talk about perfecting the a-hole character?
Yes.
The authoritative, just jerk character.
Yeah.
That guy, nobody has done it better than Dabney Coleman.
He's perfect, and it still holds up. It's still hilarious.
In fact, he is so good at playing that character. Have you ever wondered, how much of his personality is really in that
Yeah, he seems
character?
like it seems a little too natural, doesn't it?
I know.
The way it comes across is like, it doesn't seem like he's even really having to act to be this guy.
Well, 1979, we've talked about this before. Just I've been so fascinated with this era of music for such a long time. The MTV really shaking up the music industry, tail end of disco. You had the burgeoning new wave really shaking up the industry, and the music industry was riding high during the disco eras and then really kind of started crashing toward the end of the year in 1979. But just so much interesting music coming out at that time. And I'm particularly fascinated in those kind of artists that were kind of on their last days heading into the MTV revolution, the less telegenic artists. It's the end of the singer-songwriter era. Those slightly tubby, bearded, not so good-looking guys who just get wiped off the face of the planet when video takes over.
One of the things I'm really fascinated with around this time, too, are bands that were popular in the 70s. Their popularity is waning, and they've sort of revamped themselves to be more current. One of the songs that is on our playlist for this week is kind of like that.
You're referring to a key Summer of Love band that changed their sound to suit FM radio in the 1970s. We'll talk about that a little later on. Another song we're going to talk about really signposts the 80s, the coming synthesizer synth-pop revolution. Big hit that came out in the fall of 1979. And there's a movie that came out in 79 too, which is really fascinating to me. And I remember it clearly as a kid because it got a lot of negative publicity. It made the news because of violence at movie theaters and some theaters refusing to show it or pulling it off the screens. And then all that publicity kind of generated more interest in the movie. But a lot of its aesthetic really was ahead of its time and was a sign of things to come in the 80s stylistically in its visuals and its use of music. And that movie was The Warriors. Walter Hill, the director, came out in early 79, filmed in 1978 on location in New York City. It's a story about a gang trying to make its way home to their home base in Coney Island from the Bronx after a big meeting of the tribes, all these different New York gangs getting together, and somebody's trying to propose a truce, and then one of the gang leaders gets assassinated, and this particular gang gets fingered for the crime set up for it. So they've got all these people after them, and they're traveling through the night in New York City in the late 70s.
Subway.
Yeah, on the subway, running at all these obstacles and conflicts and fights on the way to try and get home. All filmed on location in the middle of the night in New York City during a time when even Manhattan, a lot of it was pretty gritty. I clearly remember as a young kid hearing about this movie and seeing the news reports and being kind of fascinated by it and think, well, it's a movie I'll never get to see. This is like for older kids and adults, and it just fed into this impression of New York as this ghetto jungle with danger lurking
The
around.
mean streets.
Yes, every corner. But a lot of that movie really has an 80s feel, an 80s aesthetic to it, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I think because it comes across having this like graphic novel, comic book feel to it, which was intended. So when you say that all the gangs get together at the beginning, they show like all these different gangs, and it's really interesting because the way that they're presented is almost like bands, like different bands, and sort of how they all have their own look, they all have their own name, and it's actually really kind of interesting. There's one that's basically a gang of mimes. and they're called the hi-hats. Like drum hi-hats, because it's spelled like that. And you've got like a gang of guys in tank tops, and then you've got the guys that are like super fly with the purple vests and
what about
skinheads.
The baseball Furies? That's one of the best
I love the baseball Furies.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, they're dressed like Yankees. The Yankees uniforms with bats, and then they have face paint that looks like sports fanatics would wear. Oh, and then I kept reading about the gang of punks, and I was like, I don't remember seeing any gang that looked like punks. Like, I'm thinking like punk rockers.
Yeah.
You know which one is the one called the punks?
It's
the overall wearing dudes with the striped shirts. They're wearing like farmers' overalls, and the leader of that gang is on roller skates.
Oh, if Dexy's Midnight Runners were punk, I guess they're the punks.
Yeah, exactly.
You think they were inspired by that movie? There's a band we'll be talking about when 82, 83 rolls around for sure.
I had never seen this movie. I've heard of it. I know about it. It's a cult classic now.
And it's funny. It's called a cult classic, but it was a hit. It was a hit movie at the time. And the reason they call it a cult classic now is because it's undergone this critical revival. Most critics hated this movie when it came out. It was like a scourge. And it's different. It's a strange movie. It's a rare movie about street gangs, kind of told from the perspective of the gang. It's not judgmental in that way. It's just kind of portraying, their trials and travails and their struggles and romance. It's not a romantic movie by any stretch.
No.
If you're sensitive, this will serve as a trigger warning, I guess. Approach this movie with caution.
Yeah.
But, it is a 70s movie. It is of the
time.
Yeah, it's of the time, exactly. Mm-hmm. But just the visual style of it, I really, I can't imagine how many music videos were influenced by this movie. It had to be hundreds.
Yeah, one of them actually really came to mind to me was Pat Benatar.
Love is a Battlefield.
Love is a Battlefield. Yeah,
for sure. Definitely. Has that same nighttime, even Beat It, really.
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
Yeah, that's all filmed at night. The use of music in the film is very 80s as well. And the ending is so 80s.
Yeah, they're on the beach and it's the showdown and then it ends with Joe Walsh in the city with them like walking off into the distance. And yeah, great song. And which actually was recorded for the movie. He wrote it with the guy who did the score for the movie, Barry Dave Vorzon, who wrote the score. And then the Eagles actually really liked the song so much that they re-recorded it and put it on the long run.
Yeah, that's right up there with some of Joe Walsh's best work, I think.
Yeah. And actually, the score is really interesting. It's very Clockwork Orange-ish to me, which a lot of this movie does have a similarity. They're gangs, for one thing. It's not as cutting edge as Clockwork Orange as far as just the visuals and, Stanley Kubrick, but there are a lot of similarities. And one of them is the score. It's very synthesized. It's also similar to Risky Business and Tangerine Dream score. It's interesting because it makes it feel sort of futuristic in a way, but it's clearly the setting of 1979. New York 1979. It is exactly what you would think or remember it was like at the time, with the subways, all the graffiti.
And there really was, the element of danger was present on set. Like I said, all filmed on location. And since it's a movie about gangs, it attracted interest from gang members. You had these people kind of lingering on the edges of the sets, oftentimes providing this air of menace. And it had to be intimidating for the actors and the crew.
Well, they had actual gang members in that scene at the park at the beginning where there's hundreds and hundreds of them. And they had actual gang members filling out that crowd.
Yeah, they had gang members and undercover cops in the crowd to make sure they kept the peace. So it definitely added to the realism
And when it was
of
shown in theaters, the first week, there were 2 shootings. They actually pulled it from a lot of theaters. The actors in this movie, too, the guy that plays Swan, who's one of the main characters, played by Michael Beck, he went on to be in Xanadu. He looks like Andy Gibb.
yeah,
Same
he's
same
got the hair.
hair.
Yeah,
And then the other main guy, Ajax, he's played by James Remar.
yeah,
He looks like a mix of Malcolm McDowell and Willem Dafoe.
yeah. That's the biggest name actor in this movie. It's early role for him, one of his first movie roles.
Yeah. But it's also one of those movies, too, that, like you said, they're basically trying to get home. There's a lot of movies from the 80s, the 70s and the 80s that have that same premise of someone like being chased. I mean, oh my God, they run so much in this movie. They're like running constantly. I mean, these dudes must be in amazing cardio shape. But like Logan's Run, running away, After Hours, Miracle Mile. I don't know if you've seen any of those movies, but Adventures in Babysitting.
Vacation.
Although they're not being chased for a lot of the movie.
Midnight Run. That's a great one.
There is sort of like a genre where people are either being chased or just trying to get home.
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Maybe
Yep, that's another one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's hundreds. I mean, it's and I'm a sucker for that theme in movie. I'm just a sucker for that story theme. Stories and movies about a journey that always interests me.
Yeah, well, a journey, and this is a journey with danger, so it's exciting and you don't know what's going to be around the corner, and it's always danger lurking because they're in New York City,
It was certainly a very influential movie, to say the least. And I think the one thing most people would recognize from that movie, the key line before the big showdown at the end, it's the character played by David Patrick Kelly, where he's clinking the bottles together on his fingers, and he goes, "Warriors, come out to play."
Yeah.
It's so classic.
That is iconic.
That has endured and become a meme for the ages.
Yeah.
Well, perfect setup for our first song, since we've talked about futurism, synthesizers, and dystopian landscapes. That perfectly sets us up to talk about Gary Numan. And he had his big hit in the United States, one hit wonder in the U.S., but a major star for a few years in England. But the song we all remember fondly, certainly I do, the first 45 I ever bought. Cars. Cars by Gary Numan sounded like little else when that hit the airwaves in 1979. Now, as we've built our playlist, we have added a lot of songs that featured synthesizers. So synthesizers weren't new technology, certainly, in 1979. But the way Gary Numan utilized them on his hit records was still not too common in popular music. You had stuff like David Bowie's Berlin albums, Kraftwerk, where the synthesizer was to the fore, and then, experimental stuff going back to the late 60s with this new keyboard technology. But Gary Numan's coming out of the punk scene with his band Two Boy Army. They're more of a straight punk band. But even before they recorded that first album, I think they started to bring in these keyboards. He kind of stumbled upon a Mini Moog synth in the studio when they were recording their first album, and then it was love at first sight. He already had an interest in technology and futurism, but he was a guitar player, not really a keyboard guy in Two Boy Army, or as they were known when he joined the Lasers. I think it was smart to change the Lasers. Oh, wow.
Okay.
That must have sounded real cool in 1976.
That was cutting edge, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, they became Two Boy Army. I'm not sure what that even means, but it sounds cooler than the Lasers. That's for sure.
Well, the tubeway, the tube, the subway, and they're like the Warriors. That's who the Warriors are. They're the two-way army.
Do they call it the tubeway? It's just the tube. I could be wrong. I'm an Anglophile.
Maybe
way
it's
back.
a combination of tube and subway.
I don't know. I haven't researched the origins, but
no matter what, it's better than the Lasers.
Yes, that's the point being. It's a much cooler name than the Lasers. Gary Numan's kind of a fascinating character, a working class Londoner, Cockney guy, which means he speaks more like the Geico lizard than Hugh Grant. Father was a Heathrow Airport bus driver. Got his first guitar at 15, and then around that time, punk music starts. Of course, anybody with rudimentary musical skills can get on board. That's what attracted a lot of people to that style of music. But he had this interest in technology and futurism. Interesting personality. A guy almost completely without guile. he's been very upfront about his shortcomings and failures as a human being and an artist. Very self-effacing man, very matter of fact. And part of that has to do with he suffers from Asperger's syndrome, which is a form of autism. And when you hear people refer to the spectrum, there's different levels of autism. And people with Asperger's are generally pretty functional within society, but there are challenges, most acutely relating to interpersonal relationships and interactions with other human beings. He's been very frank about that. But part of Asperger's syndrome, it's just the way the mind works differently than what we would consider a normal human brain, and our concepts of normality are changing by the day, as this is still an area of study and understanding.
Well, he, like many people, did not know what Asperger's is
Right.
or until much later in life. And then when he started kind of,
There's a lot of people walking around now who probably have no idea that they are on
yeah,
somewhere on that. I'm sure I am. And I'm positive I am. I've never bothered to be evaluated. I don't know that.
right.
Yeah.
And he just basically had always felt like he had a hard time connecting with people and just sort of like understanding social cues and things like that. And it's interesting because that's really a part of what became his persona and his stage presence, and which comes across as basically being robotic and unemotional.
That's an aspect of Asperger's syndrome is
Yeah.
you don't have emotional reactions to things the same way a
Mhm.
lot of other humans do. So he has this kind of icy, detached, like you said, robotic, which fits in with the modern technology being used to create the music. It's fairly simple music. You don't need Rick Wakeman to play these keyboard parts. Let's just put it that way.
Maybe you just need Jeff Downs.
But the production is brilliant. I mean, the way they layer the keyboard sounds works brilliantly, and I love his vocals. But what really grabbed me as a young music fan who purchased a 45 single of Cars with his own money, first record I ever bought with my own money, the rhythm. The rhythm section in particular, it's human beings. It's Paul Gardner on the bass, and a guy named Cedric Sharpley is the drummer. One of my all-time favorite drum tracks is on the song Cars. Cedric Sharpley came out of prog rock. He was a band called Druid, which released a couple of albums in the 70s. They were on Old Grey Whistle Test. So he's a very accomplished drummer, but he's not playing a lot of flashy parts, but just rock solid, perfect time, a lot of thump, and every fill is just perfect. Not a strike of the stick out of place. And you got a heavy bass sound, a lot of wallop in the bass department, a lot of low end on these Gary Numan tracks. This is off his third record, Pleasure Principle. No guitars at all. So the first Two Boy Army album, he discovers the synthesizer, starts bringing it in. He tells his group, they're coming out of the punk scene, guitar music. He's like, boys, this stuff's over. It's on the way out. This is the new thing.
This
we need
is
to
the
be
future.
This
Yeah.
is what we need to be doing right here. I mean, he started messing around with the synth in the studio, saw a Mini Moog in the corner, and it was love at first sight. Loved the sounds it was creating. So by the third record, no guitars, synthesizers carrying the melody.
And at this point, even though Two Way Army is his backup band on Pleasure Principle, it's now just billed as Gary Numan.
Yeah. So the second record was Gary Numan and Two Boy Army, I think, replicas. The first record, just Two Boy Army. So he's transitioning to a solo act. And the replicas, there's still guitar on that album. That's the album with Our Friends Electric. That was his breakthrough in England.
That was a number one hit. Yeah.
Huge hit in England. And he would continue to have hits. He was massively popular in the UK, starting in 79, throughout 79, 80, 81. One of the biggest stars of the country. And you're a big star in England when you get a nickname in the tabloid press, like Jacko for Michael Jackson or Madge for Madonna. He was Gaza, Gazza. The music critics just savaged this guy. They hated him. They absolutely hated him. And I think part of it was maybe related to his Asperger's. So, when you're having one-on-one interactions with him, it's probably a little off-putting. Also, he's a guy completely without guile. I mean, he's not trying to put anything over on anybody. Very matter of fact, very self-effacing about his shortcomings and foibles. And he's been very upfront throughout his career. like about his hair. He had a hair transplant early on. He's never tried to hide it. He's had multiple plastic
Mm.
surgeries. He's hell bent on staying as young looking as possible, but he's never tried to hide any of this from anybody. He's always been very self effacing, not cool. That's the opposite of cool. He's not trying to put on, he has a persona obviously on stage that he's created, but that's just part of the production of the music. And his shows were big. I mean, he put a lot into
Yeah.
the production value of his live shows. In fact, he kind of rails at some of the criticisms. Says, all these critics have just this commercialistic money grabber. I never made any money off my concerts because I was so bent on putting on the best show possible for my fans that I put all this expenditure into these sets and lighting and costumes that you never turned a profit. And that's where most musicians are really making their money. I mean, unless you have a big hit record, a number one hit, you're not making a ton of money out of record sales. A lot of your income is coming from touring. Well, he wasn't breaking even,
Yeah.
because of these big stage productions. But getting back to the song itself, Cars, yeah, it's futuristic sounding. Yeah, it's synthesizers, no guitars. One of the earliest, synth pop, techno kind of hits. But what really drew my love to this song was the rhythm section, the sonic wallop, the bass and the drums played by humans. It's just this big bottom end. And it's one of the earliest examples that I can remember as a kid and someone coming to appreciate music and understand music of really focusing in on a single element of a song's production. And this song was the drums. And we had this dinette set when I was a kid, this 70s dinette set, circular tabletop, white with bright yellow vinyl swiveling chairs.
That sounds like it could be in a Buggles video. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, metal bass chairs that swiveled around, bright yellow. And I would set up my drum kit and play Cars. I'd have the chairs gathered all around me, a couple of pencils, and I would drum along to Cars as I was blasting on the stereo. Just love the drum track. It's still to this day one of my favorite drum tracks on a song. Cedric Sharpley, who sadly passed away about 10 years ago. Not a big name, but just perfect drum part.
Well, I think that's really
song.
what sets Gary Numan apart. An actual
Yes.
rhythm section. And it really is, like you said, the bottom end. So you can take Kraftwerk, which they started turning more poppy. They actually had vocals on their albums, like in the later 70s. But you don't have the human element of the rhythm section in there. And that is really front and center with Gary Numan's music, and especially on this song. And the combination of utilizing that with the synths. I mean, the Moog, it basically just mimics the bass line throughout the whole song. And so you just fatten that sound up and, really deepen it so much in that way that it makes a whole new sound that wasn't really like what synthesizer music had already been, but still wasn't quite, it wasn't rock either. It was just a really cool amalgam of the two that really hadn't happened before. I mean, Brian Eno kind of did it to a point. I mean, he was doing something similar to that with more rock-based music. I think the other thing, too, is you could hear that there's a real rhythm section here, but then you see the video. And the video really focuses on the drummer and the bass player. So you see it, like, that, yeah, there's real people are in this rhythm section.
So, this was cutting edge in 1979 going into 1980, very futuristic sounding and hugely influential. I mean, a lot of synth pop would emerge in the 1980s, but I didn't dig most of it. And the reason is it didn't have that same sonic wallop and it didn't have that human soul in the rhythm section.
It was tinny and empty.
Yes. And the rhythm was now by machines. And a lot of what I hate about 80s production is the lack of bottom end.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason that early hip hop guys really loved Gary Numan and gravitated to this music. It was that low end, that sonic thump on the bottom end.
Yeah, I think there was kind of two camps that came out of the synth music of the late 70s that went into the 80s. And you had the highly polished, tinny, empty sounding. And then you had more bottom end, but also like Ultravox or even Duran Duran. Like you have the actual humans in the rhythm section.
Honestly, I think it draws a lot from Roxy Music. I mean, it's almost like taking Roxy Music and just subtracting
Yeah.
Phil Manzanera from the equation. But, Roxy had that great thump in the low end. Paul Thompson, the drummer, who does underappreciated drummer,
Mm-hmm.
great drummer. And then they had a succession of bassists throughout the lifespan of that group. But, Roxy used a lot of keyboard, modern keyboard sounds. You still had the guitar hero and Phil Manzanera in there, but it was that low end that made them really work on the dance floor. And I think that's Gary Numan's sound is drawing. Roxy was hugely influential as well, along with David Bowie on 80s music. I'd never heard of Roxy Music until Duran Duran came around. And then,
Oh, yeah.
once you start reading about Duran Duran and in smash hits or whatever fan magazines were popular, they always cited Roxy Music as their number one influence. And certainly it's obvious now.
Yeah.
But at the time, I didn't know what Roxy Music. I'd never heard of Roxy. What is that? I didn't know Love Is the Drug. That never crossed my radar until way later. But yeah, very influential on a lot of the new romantic bands of the 80s. But I could definitely hear a Roxy
The influence.
feel
Yeah.
in the rhythm of Gary Numan's music on The Pleasure Principle.
This is a really weird song because
Yes.
first of all,
we haven't even talked about the lyrics and the theme.
well,
Yeah.
not even that. Well, there's that, and then there's just the music too, and because
There's no chorus.
there's no chorus. I mean, it starts out first with a like the warbly sounding Moog synthesizer, which
love that.
I love the way it just brings you in and just starts to build up. Then the rhythm section comes in, and then with the drums, you have initially on the synthesizer, which actually one of the guys playing synth on this is Billy Currie, who later was in Ultravox and Visage and wrote, Fade to Gray. Anyway.
Also, he played violin and viola. There's a lot of that on this record in the mix, which is odd.
Yeah. But you get that splashy sound on the 4 every time the drummer's hitting the snare on the 4, which later goes to the 2 and the 4 later in the song. And like you said, there's no chorus. Then there's that bridge part with very tambourine heavy, also depicted in the video, because there's like that actual tambourine where Gary Numan's face is like superimposed inside the tambourine.
That's it. Yeah. But you got that tambourine constantly in the bed. It's beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then it keeps going after. Okay, this song is 3 minutes and 58 seconds long. Guess when he stops singing?
Yeah, I think it's before the 2 minute mark.
1 minute and 25 seconds is the last time there is a vocal sung in this song.
But the track is just so, God, it's so great. It's so huge sounding.
I know. You don't think about it like, God, when's this song going to end? And it continues the same line of the verse and chorus, if you can call it that, but just with no vocals. No vocals for 2 minutes and 33 seconds.
Yeah. And you're a rhythm player. You're a drummer. Cedric Sharpley's drum track, the fills are so perfect.
Oh, yeah.
They're so perfect.
I love the drums on this song, and I want to be in Gary Numan's band. Like, this is the kind of drummer I love. I love playing this kind of stuff because it's just not a lot of flash, but fills where they exactly should be, and just very efficient and just perfect.
We'll talk more about these albums because you've really been into these albums, replicas of Pleasure Principle, for a while. I really haven't explored the LPs other than being a huge fan of the song. I've only known really Cars and Down in the Park. I heard Our Friends Electric is a great track too.
So good. Yeah. Well, both Two Boy Army albums are great, but Replicas is the best of the two. And then Pleasure Principle kind of follows along the same concept. And Telecon is also great. I think that, like we've said, it's the combination of the band and the synths together and his vocals too. They don't vary a lot, but they don't feel empty or like, they still have something behind them.
It's a very appealing sound. I mean, it's supposed to be icy, cold, detached, unemotional, but there's just something really beguiling.
Yeah.
About the sound of these records.
Yeah. So those 4 albums are all great. And then it's interesting. He kind of takes a turn after that and really sort of brings in this smoother, like he has Mick Karn from Japan playing on the next album after that, Dance and I Assassin. Both of those albums are much more stylized. They actually sound a lot like Japan. I was actually really turned off from those albums initially, but I've kind of grown to like them more because I've spent a little bit more time. They definitely take more time to kind of get into. Anyway, I recommend all of the albums starting from Two Boy Army all the way up to I Assassin. The first four especially. Anybody who's into Roxy music, David Bowie, Brian Eno's rock albums,
Ultravox.
yeah. Those four albums are the best of that genre.
Oh, I agree. So Cars, the first 45 I ever bought, still pride of place in my collection. Although, again, one of the things I'm discovering with our project here, all this stuff that I loved as a kid, that once I got older and was spending more money on music and going down different paths, never really explored these favorite songs, bands, singers as a youth. Now I'm realizing how brilliant Electric Light Orchestra was. Like, why did I never buy ELO albums when I was younger? I don't understand. What kept me from doing that? Why didn't I ever buy the album that Cars came off? Because it's brilliant. I just listened to some of it on YouTube before I came down here. It all sounds great,
Well,
So
especially
it's reclaiming the songs of our youth,
Well, and especially in the US, like you said, Gary Numan was big in the UK. He's basically a one-hit wonder in the US.
I'm glad you brought that up because, part of the research I've got all these old music reference books that I turn to just to refresh my knowledge on things. The first all music guide, the book,
yeah,
Gary Numan's not even in it. The Rolling Stone record guide, not the blue one, but the one that came out in the early 90s, the red one, and the Abomination that was the last publication of that book, which is awful. He's not in that either. But yeah, he got completely left out of those books. Essentially just a one-hit wonder here in the USA.
Well, the Two Boy Army albums never even came out in the US initially.
Yeah.
So I can understand why in the time you bought the single because Cars was the song you knew. And also I think it was back then, I don't think that it occurred to us more to delve much deeper because you had to go out and buy the music, find it, buy it, rather than just be able to bring something up on Spotify just to hear it,
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's so much easier now. And I think a lot of these bands like Gary Numan have gained more of a following in the current times because it's easier for people to discover them. So I agree. I think it's really fun doing this show to be able to go back and discover this stuff and really delve deeper into things too, because there are a lot of things that I either didn't really listen to that much, definitely not in 1979, but even later on, really didn't explore that much that I'm finding now because we're doing the show, and it's really fun. I already knew there was so much music out there that it's overwhelming. Now I'm just like, oh my God, I could just spend the rest of my life doing this.
So, end of the story is we can both recommend highly those early Gary Numan albums, Replicas, the first Two Boy Army album. Definitely Pleasure Principle. I do have Telecon on vinyl. I haven't spun it yet. So, yes, definitely go and explore Gaza's albums. The next song that we have, neither of us would recommend the album that came off. We're starting to build up our AOR repertoire now. We've got Lovin' Touchin' Squeezin' by Journey. We got a couple of AOR songs on there. Jane by Jefferson Starship is about as good as AOR music gets in my book.
Perfect AOR.
Yep.
And I think this is also kind of, we've had several of these on the playlist too. One of those songs where you probably recognize it, but you don't necessarily know who the band is. You don't necessarily know who does this song. And part of that too is because Jefferson Starship has morphed so much over the years. Started out in the 60s as Jefferson Airplane, which most people would know from the song Somebody to Love and White Rabbit. Part of the whole San Francisco scene in the 60s with the Fillmore, managed by Bill Graham, who ran the Fillmore and was
the most commercially popular group to come out of that scene.
Yeah. They had a female singer, Grace Slick, was actually the second singer in the band. They had another woman singing for them on their... Did she record with them?
Yep, their first album, Jefferson Airplane Takes Off. Signe Anderson was the lead vocalist, and actually the drummer on that album was Skip Spence, who would go on to form Moby Grape.
Right. We've talked about him a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Grace Slick was in a band called The Great Society, and she actually had Somebody to Love and White Rabbit with that band, brought those songs with her over to Jefferson Airplane, and they were huge. They headlined the Monterey Pop Festival in 67, and Woodstock, Altamont. They were part of that in 67, the Summer of Love. They were a big part of that scene.
Yep. Only group to be at all three of those.
Yeah. I think Surrealistic Pillow is a good classic 60s album as a whole, but I've never been a big fan or listened really deeply into their catalog.
I do have a fascination with Grace Slick. I think she's a fascinating person and character.
Yes.
And I actually, a while back, I just kind of went down a YouTube rabbit hole of looking up interviews with Grace Slick. Because she is so entertaining.
Yeah.
I mean, here's a woman with so much swag and this kind of tough persona, but super charming too. Just great mind, very quick wit. And she was much older. In this era where it was don't trust anybody over the age of 30.
Yeah.
She was knocking on 30 when they were breaking out. She was that old. She's been around the block a time or two.
Yeah, she's definitely an interesting character. And she's one of the constants throughout the career of Jefferson Airplane and Jefferson Starship until the album that has Jane. And this is actually the only album I think that she's not on.
Yeah, the only one she's not on at all. She was raging alcoholic at this point.
Yeah.
It was badly affecting her stage performance. And
so her, Paul Kantner, Marty Balin, well, they're part of the original Jefferson Airplane. And then
that's the core. Well, actually, that's really not fair to say. I mean, the Surrealistic Pillow group, they're all those elements are key. I mean, Jack Cassidy, one of the great bass players of that era. And then Jorma Kaukonen with the blues influence. Yeah, all part of, all of those elements were kind of critical, but those guys are long gone by the time of.
Yeah, well, Kaukonen and Cassidy actually split off and formed Hot Tuna, which is a jam band. They became really popular, and they've
never really listened to their music.
I'm not a fan because I just don't like that kind of music. It's just like, it's like a Grateful Dead sort of like, but a lot of it is more acoustic and then bluesy.
Never been a Grateful Dead fan.
No, me either. So they sort of split into two camps. They went off to do Hot Tuna, and then Kantner, Slick, and Balin, they continued on. Started out with just a Paul Kantner solo album, but that was when he first started using the name Jefferson Starship with the album Blows Against the Empire.
It was kind of a one-off where they brought in all these other players, guys from Grateful Dead and Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
Yeah.
Kind of a all-star assemblage.
Quicksilver Messenger Service. It was sort of like a San Francisco all-star album.
It was released with Jefferson Starship, but I don't think at the time they were thinking this is the new band going forward. It was just kind of a one-off deal.
No, in fact, it was just Paul Kantner and Grace Slick from Jefferson Airplane because Marty Balin at this time, he left too.
And they were a couple at this point. They'd had a child together.
Yeah. And they put out a few albums. They put out like 3 albums as Kantner Slick or Kantner Slick and Jefferson Starship, and just still kind of using their own names, but not quite just the band name. Until, let's see, I think Dragonfly was the first album that actually had the name Jefferson Starship in it. And then in 1975, Red Octopus, Marty Balin came back. And that had one of their biggest hits on it, Miracles, which was a
his song.
Which was his song. They had another hit from that album too, Play on Love. And that was actually the first album that was credited to Jefferson Starship.
And that was a big hit album.
Huge.
They had a big hit single.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And actually, I've always kind of thought, I don't know why the critics really like this album. But I went back and listened to it, and I'm appreciating Marty Balin's vocals more.
I think it got a 5-star in the blue book.
It did, and I could never understand why. But I think that his vocals have that MOR feel to them. They have that soft rock kind of, that's what I equate them with. And that song Miracles is in that vein too.
It was perfect timing where they came out with the perfect music for the perfect time that just chimed with the times.
Yep. And so I guess I kind of felt like it was dated in that way, but I've gone back and listened to the album. The album is good. And I'm now appreciating his vocal style more.
So I think that's part of why the early Jefferson Airplane albums don't connect as much, because just the vocal stuff, particularly Marty Ballin, just seems dated.
Yeah.
It's just
it does
'cause they're
seem
draw-
dated in the
yeah.
60s vein. It does seem dated from that 60s sound, but it fits
they're
well in the
coming-
mid
yeah.
70s.
They're old folkies. They're coming out of the folk scene. It's kind of that flowery kind of folk singing that just didn't.
And you know, it's interesting because I've gone back and listened to all the Jefferson Starship albums now and the solo Paul Kantner and Slick and all of
Oh
them.
wow, you've gone deep.
Marty Balin actually sings a lot of he's the lead vocalist, really. Grace Slick,
Yeah.
she does sing and she sings lead. She's the most well-known to me, I guess I equate her with the 60s stuff because she sang the 2 songs that were the most popular of theirs.
Right.
But she's just a backup singer in a lot of the music, especially with Jefferson Starship. So now we're getting into like 1975 is Red Octopus, 76 is Spitfire, which also Marty Balin has quite a few of the soft rock vocals to them. Then we get to 78 with Earth, and that album actually is the most successful of the Jefferson Starship group. They had several top 50 songs at least, like maybe 3 or 4.
I've got those 2 on CD over here that I inherited. I haven't listened to yet.
I like
the
Spitfire.
and Earth, yeah.
Earth is pretty good too, but I actually like Spitfire better. Now we get to the point where Marty Balin does not want to tour anymore. He's kind of like pulling away from the band. Grace Slick's alcoholism is out of control. They do a couple live shows where she just completely goes off the rails and it's disastrous.
Yeah, I've heard that they experimented a little with drugs.
Oh,
back
maybe
in
a little.
Jefferson airplane days.
That could be. You should just the album cover, the cover for Spitfire with this, it's like a cartoon drawing of this dragon with a woman that looks a lot like Grace Slick sitting on the back token out, and it's like, okay, that pretty much depicts, I think, where Grace Slick was at that time.
Subtle.
Riding the dragon. So Paul Kantner, who now they are no longer a couple, kicks her out of the band.
I think she slept with every male member of the band at least once at some point.
I'm sure, yes. So she's asked to leave the
and
band.
she's not shy about it either.
No.
Shy is not a part of her person. I would love to meet this woman. I know she's fairly elderly now, but she got more into art in her later years. But
she's a fascinating person.
Really is. Comes kind of from a upper class family in Chicago and kind of a prep school, debutante balls and all that, and kind of turned her back on being a society wife and dove headlong into the counterculture. She was just a riveting looking woman with piercing blue eyes, beautiful, and it just dove headlong into the counterculture, but very sharp, very quick mind.
Yeah. Well, at this point, she's at her lowest, I think. And so she's out of there. They bring in a new lead singer, Mickey Thomas. Now, we've talked about him on the podcast because a song that he sings lead on, the Elvin Bishop, Fooled Around and Fell in Love. Mickey Thomas takes the lead vocals on that song. So they bring him into the band, and such a great voice.
Oh, amazing.
Especially like the perfect AOR, one of the perfect AOR vocalists.
Cuts through.
Yes.
That voice could cut through glass.
Yep. Just like Journey and Foreigner, and that fits the bill of the AOR too. You got the great lead vocalist.
If you're making a AOR vocalist Mount Rushmore, he's him, Perry, maybe Lou Gramm. That would be an interesting assignment.
Yeah. I think the
top 4 voices of AOR.
Of AOR, yep.
Yeah.
Well, he's definitely up there. Oh, actually, I forgot to mention, before Marty Balin left, there is one more thing that they do. They record the song Light the Sky on Fire for the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Oh, I don't know about this.
You don't know about this? How can you not know about this? And you're a Star Wars fan, too.
Well, I'm not a geeky Star Wars
fan. Oh, I
fan.
don't care. You don't have to be geeky Star Wars to know about this. You've never heard of the Star Wars Holiday Special from 1978?
I've heard of it. I just didn't know that Jefferson Starship was on it.
You didn't know the Jefferson Starship was on it? This is the best part of the whole thing. This is like the only
I guess
thing
it makes
you need to
sense.
See.
It makes sense you'd have a band with Starship in the name on the Star Wars special.
You would, and please, I implore everyone, go to YouTube and watch this video. There's, you can find it, just this part of the movie. because it's like the most perfect cheese fest you've ever seen of late 70s with I mean, it looks like Marty Balin singing into a lightsaber, which seems really unsafe to me, but that's the way it's depicted. And it's great. You got to go watch it. But it's actually a really good song.
Well, we know Marty Balin isn't afraid of danger because he tried to break up fights at Altamont and got knocked flat on his not flat cold.
Okay, well,
dragged unconscious off the stage.
Well, I think that he wasn't afraid of danger either by even appearing in the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Danger to his reputation and ego.
That was his last performance with the band. So anyway.
Yeah, that would do it.
That would do it. Yep. So he was out of there after that. And Mickey Thomas comes in, and Freedom at the Point Zero comes out in 79. Jane is a single. Such a great song. Love this song so much. Now, when the song starts, you kind of think, wait a minute, is this Toto Hold the Line? Because it has the same piano, the da 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 da, the repetitive piano that other songs from that era have too, but definitely Toto. And, the verses and the chorus, you've got the pretty simple guitar riffs that they're cool, but, nothing like
crunch. Got some crunch to
crunch, yeah.
The song rocks like a mother.
It does. And it's actually kind of one of those perfect skating rink songs too.
Yeah, but it's tuneful. So that's,
Yeah, because you have Mickey Thomas's vocals, which are, soaring and great. I feel like the first half of the song is just like a really basic rocker. But then all of a sudden, it goes into this part that's almost like a reggae.
Yeah. The bridge.
Yeah, it goes into this bridge that has sort of like this little reggae feel. And then you've got Mickey Thomas's vocals coming in.
I gotta know.
Yeah, then you've got the play it again. And you've got the big scream. And then all of a sudden, it's My Woman from Tokyo by Deep Purple.
There you go.
Da, 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 just for like one little part. Then the second half is basically just all wailing guitars, screaming vocals, and Jane, like a chanting.
Jane.
It's so funny. I feel like it's almost two songs. Like the first half is just this just pretty basic but cool rocker. Then you've got that little that bridge that sort of breaks it up, and all of a sudden it's kind of like, oh, this is different. Then you got My Woman from Tokyo. Now you've just got full bore vocals, screaming guitars, and everything all the way through to the end.
Craig Chiquiso, the lead guitarist in the band. So the old Jefferson Airplane, you got Jorma Kaukonen, who's a virtuoso guitar player, but firmly rooted in the blues. I mean, everything is coming from that rootsy direction. But Chiquiso, much more modern rock guitar player, more metallic.
Yeah.
And his work on the coda is, the guitar solo and the work on the coda, really good stuff, tasty. And then, of course, Mickey Thomas, unbelievable singer.
Yep.
Unbelievable. And he's got that upper range, but he's not shrieking like a lot of heavy rock vocalists. He is clean, powerful, and live, note perfect. He is hits every high note without any kind of edge to it. Just clean,
really similar to
cut glass.
Similar to Steve Perry, really. Like just and in how he can also carry that off live too. Mickey Thomas is a more clean sound. Yeah.
Very clean. Very clean.
Yeah. But perfect. Like note perfect live too.
He does get to that hard rock heavy metal wail at one point in this song where you're playing a game. You're playing a game.
Yes.
Oh man, and he nails it. Just nails.
Yes.
But he nails every vocal. I mean, it's amazing to me that so Fooled Around and Fell in Love came out in 76, and that's a star-making vocal performance on that song, but it's still 3 years down the line, and he's just kind of a backing singer for Elvin Bishop.
Yeah.
I mean, it took him that long.
It's surprising it took him that long to really front a band.
Yeah.
But they really headed out of the park with him, bringing him on, because from then on, they had some other really big hits. And in fact, There's next album has a song that I will probably choose for the playlist too, which is probably my favorite Jefferson Starship song, Find Your Way Back.
I even liked Nuclear Furniture at the time. I had that record when it came out, and I liked it.
Lay It on the Line.
No Way Out was the first single. I
Mm.
really liked that a lot.
Mhm.
And Laying It on the Line was a good single. And that's really the only Jefferson Starship album that I'd listened to in depth. But what was really interesting about Jefferson Starship, at least at that point in the 80s, is you've got this pretty mainstream rock AOR sound, but then you still have elements of old Jefferson Airplane with Paul Kantner and Grace Slick, kind of that hippie element.
Yeah.
And as time went on, those songs sounded more and more dated and just passe.
Yep.
But they never lost touch with that kind of revolution element, you know.
Yeah.
But the parts just didn't always fit, but it made for an interesting album, just kind of all over the map, really. With Kantner's songs, Slick songs, and then the more straight ahead radio songs.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of interesting how they morphed, and they still had one foot in the 60s, and then they were sort of like leaning into the 70s, and then they even like were pushing through into the 80s, and they just kind of kept bringing along all the different eras, styles with them, and they never really, they were able to find popularity in all of those different incarnations, even going on to Starship and having huge
it's almost
hits.
Almost a Fleetwood Mac saga with comings and goings in the band and ups and downs.
Yeah.
Commercial ups and downs. They had peaks in 3 straight decades with Surrealistic Pillow, big commercial breakthrough in the 60s. And then with the Red Octopus album in the 70s, that was a #1 album.
Yeah.
And Miracles was, I think, a #1 single. It was
a number 3. Yeah,
it was a huge hit.
Yep.
And then, Jane was a top 20. It wasn't a #1 hit, but it got plenty of airplay. And then, when you're ready to write them off in the 80s, they just lopped Jefferson off the front of the name, and boom, they're back to the top of the charts.
Because Paul Kantner takes the name Jefferson and won't let them use it.
Is that what it was?
But then they're huge. They're even bigger than ever at that point.
But I don't think there's a single member that was in the band straight through.
No,
they all
because
left
even Grace Slick wasn't in the band for Freedom at .0. Yeah.
Yeah.
But other than that album, she'd be the one that had the most longevity with the band.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's funny because all 3 of those, are, well, I guess, like you said, Surrealistic Pillow to Red Octopus, and then to like Freedom at .0 and Earth and those, and then up into Starship, even though they have the same members, kind of, some of them, a lot of them have the same members going through, and Grace Slick is definitely a constant. They sound like totally different bands. They are doing such different styles. And when Mickey Thomas comes in and the other guitarist,
Craig Chiquiso.
Yeah. And when you watch them live from that era too, from the Jane era, he looks like the total late 70s rocker dude with the long hair. And they've got the, like the guitars are definitely more like, they look like rockers, and alongside Grace Slick, who's this old woman pretty much at this point now.
Oh, she still looks good.
Still looks good. Yeah, no, she still looks good and cool. But Mickey Thomas and Grace Slick definitely look different than the rest of the band, which is like full on 80s hair band rocker dudes,
Yes.
It's a funny combination.
One other thing I should add, the writer of this song was David Freiberg, who rarely wrote for the group. He'd been with them throughout their 70s, pretty much throughout the Starship run. He'd been in Quicksilver Messenger Service, one of the big bands in that original San Francisco scene. Interesting. So 2 guys, Freiberg and Pete Sears, kind of alternated. They both played keyboards and bass. So really neither one of them was the bassist or the keyboards. They just kind of went back and forth on those 2 instruments. Freiberg was really a guitar player and part of the 3-guitar attack in Quicksilver at one point. But yeah, that was his song. One of the few that he contributed lyrics for the band. And it's their greatest. It's easily my favorite Jefferson Starship song.
Oh, I forgot to mention something else too. When Mickey Thomas came on, they also replaced the drummer, Ainsley Dunbar from Journey.
Yeah, that's right.
They brought him on. So when he left Journey, he came on to Jefferson Starship.
Yep. Ainsley Dunbar, who had drummed with Frank Zappa and among other big names. But yeah, so both these songs, I had 45 records when I was a kid, and I think Jane, that's probably the hardest rock that I got at that period of time would have been that song.
Yeah, it does. Right, it rocks pretty hard.
It
It
does. It
does.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah. You hard rockers, don't be afraid of the tunefulness. That the song has real bite to it. So yeah, two great additions to our list. I love it when we converge and we have things that are both high on our lists.
Yeah, me too.
So Cars by Gary Numan, Jane by Jefferson Starship. We're still evaluating our favorite albums from 1979. And I think I'm not sure what my next song choice is going to be. I think I'm going to go pure pop next time. I'm going to go pure pop,
Okay.
classic pop.
I'm going to stay in the rock vein.
Going to stay in the rock vein?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we've run out of time on this episode, and thank you for continuing along our journey. You could find Matt and Sheryl's Gen Excellent playlist on Spotify. I've also kept a parallel list on Apple Music, and check into our Facebook page as well if you want to add comments or ask us questions. Until next time, I'm Matt.
I'm Sheryl.
And this is Matt and Sheryl's Gen Excellent playlist. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Take care.